Happy Sunday, everybody! No, we're not at Candy Country Club. You're on Fire Up with the Motor City Mad Mouth, and this is what you call a much different environment than the country club. That's what you call the grinded out version of broadcasting. But nevertheless, the two principals are to my right, and Candy Ebling, welcome back.
Well, thanks, Scott. Typically, it's me and Jeremy hosting together, but we decided to bring on a special guest who just loves the Motor City Mad Mouth, loves to be in spotlight and be the host, the hostess with the mostest, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Okay. Hello, Ralph Williams. And we turn it over to Jeremy Ballrick.
Good evening. I feel like a third wheel all of a sudden.
You are.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait.
well, I'm the single guy. I am the third wheel.
No, that's true. You're the third wheel on this show, but we're glad to have you. And you really seem to have found your niche here when it came down to the Fire Up series, as well as wherever I plug in. Let me give everybody an overview of what the show is going to be about. We are going to talk about the NFL salary cap going up about X amount of millions of dollars. We're going to talk about Jen Powell and MLB spring training, and last but not least, Duke star Kyle Filipowski. Before we get down to that, we'll take care of company business. Let everybody know that Fire Up is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Fire Up can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? One ticket is through the chat room, and the other way is through South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and we'll have more information about the show and other things in just a bit. With that said, Candy Ebling taking a break from posting, and Jeremy Ballrick, as usual, is always fired up wherever he's called upon. At least he got the afternoon assignment, so he couldn't go ahead and say he overslept today, right, Jeremy? We gave you plenty of time to wake up today.
I was up at 8:30. I don't want to hear it.
Okay, you don't have to hear it. Okay, we got up at 8:30 today. But the one thing you're going to hear about is the NFL salary cap increasing by $30 million. Jeremy, give us more insight on that.
It's actually 30.6 million. So that means that the projected salary cap was going to be around 224, but they already announced that there was a $19.3 million increase. But it also was because of the streaming contracts for Apple TV, Paramount Plus, and there was another network added that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. So at 30.6, this is a record breaking increase from one year to the next. But it's also next year is going into the last year of the new CBA. And that's always projected to be the least because there's not going to be much added as far as streaming or TV revenue. So you're probably looking at a 10 to $15 million increase next year to take it to 265 to possibly 270 million. So it's all TV revenue. It's based off of viewership. That's why the cap actually went down after the 2020 season, was because with COVID, all they had was TV revenue. There was no concessions. The only ticket sales they got were the people that bought those stupid cardboard cutouts to sit on the sidelines. I'm sorry, I didn't agree with that 100%.
Right.
I was like, why do I want to pay $50 a game to have my cardboard cutout there?
Right. Yeah. Gosh, doesn't seem unlike another lifetime when you had cardboard cutouts. I can't believe we even lived through something like that. I really can't. All right. Well, we'll turn over to Candy.
I thought the interesting thing is if you look at all 32 teams heading into free agency in the draft season, Washington Commanders have the highest draft space of cap space available at 87.5 million. You go all the way down. If you want to go to pretty much break even, San Francisco 49ers only have 834,000. Cleveland Browns are negative 6.2. And the highest negativity is the Buffalo Bills at 41.7 million over.
I have a question.
Yes, hear me?
How did New Orleans go from 80 million over with only a $30 million increase to less than 41 to be less than the Bills? Because that doesn't make sense. They haven't made any cuts yet.
They're at 40.1 million. I thought, didn't they cut somebody? Let me see. I thought they had cut somebody in. Oh, let me quick see if it gives me an update on them. Let's see. Oh, because they restructured Derek Carr's deal.
Oh, well, yeah,
Says
they should. He isn't worth
before
what they were paying him.
I'm sorry?
They should have. He isn't worth what they were paying him.
Yeah, they did that early Friday morning, but I just thought it was kind of interesting how much, like, the Packers have 8.2 million. Where do your Lions stand?
We're sixth in the league at $63.4 million. So don't forget, everybody, 18 million is what it takes to sign your rookies every year under the new CBA.
Right.
That does not change. They have a rookie salary cap. The only thing that goes up is their future each year from that contract. They have an incentives where they get a little more each year. So your guys you drafted in 2022 last year are actually made 20 million this past season. Next year they'll make 22. It's a $2 million increase across the board. It's an increment amount. They do that so that at the end of their contract, they're actually being compensated more than their rookie year because let's face it, how many times have we seen guys not make it to the end of their rookie contract?
True. Well, the one thing about NFL contracts, we all know that, is say what you want about the money, but the only thing that matters is the signing bonus that they get, number one. That's the only thing guaranteed. And they're pretty much essentially 1-year contracts anyway, because they can redo them and rip them up any way they want. I'll tell you what my thoughts are of the salary cap, okay? And period. If you don't spend your money wisely, it ain't going to matter how much you spend anyways. It really isn't. All you have to do is look at baseball. How many of the teams with the top payrolls have not won World Series titles? How many smaller market or mid-market teams have gone out there and won? So, you know what? I'm not a math major. I'll never pretend to be one anyway. But it isn't how much money you have. It's how well you spend it wisely and make smarter decisions somewhere down the road. That's what I've always thought about. So I don't care about the 30.6 million. What does that buy you? A quarterback and a half? Really?
It buys you a mid-level quarterback. What it buys you.
Exactly. That's my point. Thank you for making my point for me. So 30.6 million doesn't buy you much. Or maybe if you're lucky and you get a quarterback at 20 million, you could get a running back for 10, and then you got 2 positions filled. Wow. Okay. So that's pretty much the 30.6. Okay. Remember when they had an unlimited cap a few years ago before they got the new CBA? Either way, the owners are billionaires. They know how much money they're going to spend, regardless of what the cap is. These guys aren't stupid. They're not. See how it plays out. All right. Next topic we're going to talk about, pretty good one too, is Jen Powell made the leap from the minors to MLB spring training game. It's the first time since 2007. And keep in mind, she's a softball star. This is a really great story. It really is. Candy Ebling, you can lead off with this one.
So it took her 8 years to make the leap from the minors to the major league spring training game. She is umpiring in the Grapefruit League. She did the home opener, Houston Astros and Washington Nationals, at the newly renamed ballpark, Cacti Park of the Palm Beaches, yesterday. It marks the first time since 2007 that a woman umpired a major league spring training game, last done by Ria Cortizio. She used to be a softball star. That is true. Across the next few weeks, she will be based in Palm Beach County to work other spring training games. No woman has ever been assigned to umpire a regular season game in the majors. MLB's move comes 27 years after the gender barrier for game officials was broken in the NBA, 9 years after it ended in the NFL, and 2 years after the Men's Soccer World Cup employed a female referee. It's kind of big as it comes down to for women in officiating for MLB. They're saying now that there aren't many women in the training program, which is really kind of sad because let's face it, when you compare men and women and most people will, they'll say that there's obviously very differences as speed or ability or whatever. I'm surprised that the one sport that they probably need the least amount of agility or speed or anything in baseball is the one that's trailed every other sport. You know, NBA, you're running back and down the field. NFL is a very physical game. But I guess I'm very surprised that MLB is still the good old boys league and hasn't let any women into the female side of umpiring. Jeremy, your thoughts?
Well, you said it. You said the good old boys league. There's a reason why the MLB has been the good old boys league. It's the oldest of the professional networks, and it has been America's pastime. And what has America been clinging on to? What little bit of masculinity they have left. We got boys that want to be girls, girls that want to be boys. I don't care about all that, but you know what? What we do have is equality, and it has been here a long time. But in order for there to be more female umpires in MLB, there has to be more that are willing to go through the training. Until they're willing to go through the training, you won't see more. But I hope she gets a chance to actually come up and do some regular season games.
All right. You guys, both of you bring up interesting points. So I'm going to take a very, very, very different approach from you. Number one, we have 17 games, right? Regular season and a few preseason games. Not a lot. Not a lot of time to be away from your family either. I don't know what you have in hockey, so I can't really comment on many female officials there. So I'm going to take the fifth on that until I get more information. I can't imagine there are a lot, but so I don't want to be accused one way or the other of saying things. You do have a fair amount of female officials, I believe, in the NBA, if I'm correct. Okay. So what you have here with Major League Baseball is you have 162 game schedule, okay, and you have spring training. And when you look at the amount of games that they have, let's face the reality, females, males alike, their mothers, okay, and being away. And the one thing about baseball, like a lot of sports, but especially baseball, you spend a lot of time away from your family. So how many prefer to spend that many months away from their family when you talk about season's length? That's all I'm saying here, season's length. So that might discourage participation into wanting to do this. Now, we've seen female participation in auto racing. Okay, I get that. There's a lot of female participation a lot of places. But I guess what I'm trying to say is schedule length probably might have a little bit to do with this as well. And the other sports are more convenient for them to be involved in compared to this one. Yes, I won't kid you. It is a good old boys league. Once upon a time, NASCAR was too. And all you had was drivers up and down the coast until they got smart. And they went to the West Coast, the Midwest, and everywhere else until but when it comes to MLB, remember, it took them a long time before they got replay. So it's always taken them a lot longer doing other things until they finally just came around. What would make anybody think otherwise that this would be the case here? So I'm glad that we all have different perspectives on this particular topic. And I hope that everybody can go out there. If you're not watching the show or listening to it everywhere, send us your feedback at gmail.com. Speaking of which, let me go over a couple other items here with us. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter /X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is normally behind the scenes, but today she's in front of the camera. And I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. At the top of your screen. And it's old school media versus new school media, and available on Kindle and Amazon. Amazon's great. You can buy it all over the world. So I know that's a book here where people that aren't in the industry can learn about it. Those that are in the industry can get more educated on it. So I think that this is a pretty good thing when you look at that there's so many different perspectives as to why they're not involved. I don't know how many umpire schools they've gone to, what the training is like. But think about it, when umpires are one of the most demanding sports out there, and I'll tell you why, is albeit officials never elect anywhere, But you make one call, and all of a sudden, these fans are more vocal here than they probably are anywhere else. And how many times do you want to walk in to that stadium? It's a very lonely thing. What about when Jim Joyce watched the Armando Galarraga no hitter? Oh my gosh, social media backlash. You think a lot of people are thick skinned enough to have to deal with backlash in this sport, which is so much more magnified here than it is anywhere else. And I emphasize the word backlash. Mistakes are a lot more magnified. Blown calls in the World Series, you name it, you're there and in for me. How many times does an umpire go out there and get pointed out for things that they do good? Probably not as much as they do anywhere else. And that's a lot for a lot of individuals to handle. Even more so when you talk about great athletes that don't make it in baseball, because you could be an athlete in basketball, but the hardest thing to do in baseball is hitting a ball itself. So again, you go to the ballpark, okay, it's a very lonely feeling, and you very rarely ever get praised for what you do well, and you get hammered when they don't. How many people have the strong mindset that they can handle it? Something worth thinking about.
Or the thick skin.
That too.
You know,
Thick
I
flash.
said something about this to somebody the other day. They said, I don't understand why all these hard-nosed coaches didn't get a job. I said, because the modern day society is soft. Capital SAWFT, soft. Their
Right.
skin is too thin, and they can't take constructive discipline the right way.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why do you think Gutsy Baker recently left the Houston Astros to take a consulting job with the Giants? He didn't feel the Astros fans were appreciative enough. I don't need all this drama from you media and you fans. I'd rather go up there and just get away from it. He had his World Series in his pocket. So no matter what you do, you're being scrutinized all the time. And after a while, you just get getting tired of it. John Tortorella of the Flyers is a great way of doing it. He intimidates the media, and yet he knows what to say and what not to say. And his players love him, but not everybody has that kind of a mindset. But staying on topic here, how many women? I know women can be a bit on the sensitive side, right? I mean, isn't that what the general consensus of their personality is? Well, sensitive people don't last in baseball. They really don't. It's a cutthroat sport in more ways than one. Not only when you're playing it, but whether you're calling it, and it's just tough. Whereas football, you're mixed in with with an officiating crew. Basketball, you have a few, and a lot of your other officials are there to go out there and have your back. And of course, the instant replay system, because all you got to do is walk over to the scorer's table and look at what happened, and that neutralizes the tension there. Anything else you want to add, Candy?
I'm gonna stick up for the women, because there are some women that are thick skinned. It just depends. And I would say the times have changed, and that everybody is more critical of everybody else, including all the refs. And the fact that there is so much more media, social media, TVs, people recording things, that everything is more blown out of proportion. Because let's face it, before you use any instant replay or you go and watch a video of what happened, you're watching it with your own eyes in real time. When you slow things down, and let's face it, there have been lots of calls that when you slow things down and you zoom the camera in, you get a much better picture, or you can see more accurately. And when you're calling it quick, it's tough. But there have been some bad umpires on the men's side that I would really argue with too. So I think if there's some women that want to get into it and they're good and she's gone up the ranks, she's done minor league baseball, give her a shot at MLB.
Well, I don't think anybody's debating that, Candy. If there's a woman good enough out there to make it to MLB and she's paid her dues to get to the system, by all means. When I judge broadcasters, I don't care what race they are, what gender they are. If you're good, I want you, period. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter who you are. If you're good and you're talented, you do it. I think the problem with baseball, it doesn't matter whether you're going to get women, is there a lack of them that want to do it. It's just a numbers game is really what it is.
But if there's ones that are out there that have started to do it in minor league, obviously they want to get to the next level. And if major league isn't doing that or allowing them, if she's been in minor leagues for 7 years and never gotten the opportunity, that's sad, because she wants to be there. Let her.
All right,
Jeremy.
go ahead, Jeremy.
But also at the same token, you have to remember one thing. In order to move up, you have to be X amount of accuracy on your calls.
Right.
So it could have been an accuracy issue, and she finally got to the point where she was accurate enough to make it to this level, because they do have that acronym going from the double A to triple A and then to the pros. So she's moved up the ranks, and it probably does take 7 years. We don't know how fast the men get up there. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Most of them, if you look at most of the refs in the Major League Baseball, they're all 35 plus years old, except for maybe a handful.
True. Yeah, much older crowd it takes a while to pay your dues to get there. Totally understand that. And remember one thing, we're only talking about the umpires. You're starting to see a lot more female movement, in terms of general managers and other opportunities. We're only talking about the umpiring side. So there's
Right.
been movement. Heck, we just had a manager, Rachel Belkovic, who just moved over to the Marlins, who's in charge of their farm system. Kang Ying, and the list goes on, and presidents. We just haven't addressed umpiring like we are today. That's the only thing we haven't done. But yeah, more power to them. If there's a woman good enough to go out there and pay her dues and can umpire, I'm all for it. I have zero problem. But this is a tough nut to crack. It really, really is.
And I think a lot of that, the reason why women don't go into MLB or baseball that much, it's a 9-month-a-year sport.
Well, that's exactly. That's what I'm telling you. How many times when you watch a Hall of Fame thing, Jeremy, okay, that boy, I'm glad my wife was there to make sure that I could get through. I wouldn't have been able to pull this off. You know what? 9 months is a lot longer than a lot of these others walk in the park. 4 months, no big deal. 5 months, no big deal, right? Once a week.
They'd have to make a choice: carry a baby or ref a game.
Right. Well, again, there's another point. Well, and you got the WNBA too, a shorter season. Okay, therefore it's easy to occupy the mother/player role unless you're going overseas and picking up money elsewhere. So it's again what I talked about initially. The length of the season might be a strong impact about how much participation there is on the female side towards being an umpire. Length of season, folks.
I was agreeing with you.
No, I know you are. I'm just emphasizing my point, talking with my hands and my mouth. Length of season. Okay. Well,
so wait. One more thing. MLB announced earlier this month that she was one of 24 minor league umpires assigned to a full-time schedule during this year's spring training, putting her in a prime position to be called up to a regular season major league game this season. According to the Associated Press, last year, 21 of 26 full-time spring training umpires were added to the in-season call-up list, and USA Today reported last week she's expected to be on the call-up list.
Well, there you go.
It takes that long to get in. It was nothing against her or what she's doing. It takes that long to get to this point. You were saying it's a travesty, but if she's the only one that's went through the training to do it, kudos to her for making it.
Right.
That's where we have to be. We can't say for shame on the MLB because this is the first one. She was probably the first one that ever applied for it because of the 9th baseball season.
So there you go. Now you do see that she's on the call-up list, and I wouldn't be surprised if more of this takes place. That's my point all along. It's a long season, and like Jeremy's been alluding to for the entire show, that it may take a while to get to the major league. Sometimes it takes men 7, 8, 9 years until they're journeymen, until they finally get to the big leagues. You never know. It depends on the ability and the demand in a position. I'll say one thing before we move on to the next topic, okay? And I know this working in the minor leagues as well as the big leagues. If you're a left-handed pitcher, and I repeat, a left-handed pitcher, your time in the minor leagues is going to be much lower because you need left-handed pitchers, and a marginal left-handed pitcher can get there faster. And I'll tell you one guy that I remember standing out back in my days covering the Fort Lauderdale Yankees back in the 80s was a guy by the name of Ray Fontenot. Okay, not the greatest pitcher, but he ended up going with the Cubs and a lot of other teams, and he moved through the system much faster because you needed left-handed pitchers, and they would get there 2-3 years. Where right-handers are a dime a dozen, left-handers are a rare breed. What does that mean in this particular state? It goes back to what Jeremy said. Could take you as many 5 to 7 years until you get to the system. Remember, what we also have to understand is you got low Class A, high Class A, double A, triple A, until you get to the big leagues. So there are opportunities somewhere else. The question is, where are they sliding into that mix? This is a topic that could easily stand out by itself, but reality is situations, I hope that more of them get the opportunity, just like every single sport, even though we already know it's a good old boy sport. All right, let's go to the hardwood. Duke star Kyle Filipowski suffered a knee injury following an 83-79 road loss at Wake Forest. Head coach Don Shire confirmed. I talked about this on Pundit's Pundit, where I believe LSU got fined $100,000 when they stormed the court after an upset win. But the reality is I think really that these court storms have got to stop. And this is exactly why you don't want players to get injured at all. I understand fans being excited, but at some point or another, they have to stop. I'm totally against them. And I made my feelings known on Thursday night, so I'm not going to reiterate something that I believe they must stop or find the universities that are involved or whatever. With that said, Jeremy, go ahead.
We've been saying the court storming, field storming, and everything else was going to be an issue once somebody got hurt. It finally happened.
Right.
Fans have gotten hurt, marching band people have been hurt, and all sorts of stuff at the football games. That's happened 100 times. Happened in soccer over there in Europe, where you heard about the one guy getting trampled to death when their team finally won that championship in the Euro League, when everybody threw up the old man that fell down and ended up getting trampled on and nobody noticed. Because when you're in that, it's a frenzy. It's just like chumming the water near the black-tipped sharks. It's a frenzy thing. You get in that frenzy mob mentality and you just go. And it's got to stop. Not just league-wide, not just any one thing. It's got to be sports-wide. It has to be a ban all the way across, because somebody's literally going to get hurt or killed that's an athlete or a ref or a marching band member running out on the field 30 seconds before the game's done.
Right. Well, again, how many times have you seen it? Court storming, field storming in football, wherever. You're right. It does have to stop. And now maybe Filipowski's situation might add a little bit more to what we're talking about, or is it going to take multiple? I'll probably figure it out. I don't even know. All I can tell you is the same way I felt Thursday is the same way I feel now. It must stop immediately, or I think the schools that are involved should be heavily fined, and there could be a lot of public relations repercussions. All right, Candy.
So I'm going to take the same stand, but from a different viewpoint. Last weekend, Scott, you and I covered the USF FAU men's basketball game.
Right.
I took pictures, which meant I was sitting on the court floor underneath one of the baskets.
Right.
The game ended, and yes, there were 10,000 fans at that stadium, inside that stadium, that went crazy because USF beat FAU. And yes, USF stormed the court. I witnessed it. I was down there in amongst all those fans storming that court. I get you're excited. But I also want to say that some of the teams have, how should I put this, accelerated that or encouraged that behavior, because one of the things I've noticed both teams did at their own home courts. Now I'll preface that. Both teams, after they won on their home court, they go around the outside of the court and shake everybody's hand or high five all the fans. So that already is telling you as fans, oh, let's quick go down. I want to give a high five to the basketball players because they did an amazing job. Now, I've seen the same thing when we covered FSU game at football, at their football stadium. They went around the outside by the stands and high-fived anyone. And for the longest time, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. They're really, they're engaging their fans. But then when I think about it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's encouraging them to come down and storm. And I'm like, that's not okay. They've got it. They've got to stop it. Because like this person got injured, Caitlin Clark. They did the same thing for her. Now, luckily, she didn't get injured. And it's not just the players that are getting injured. It could be the fans that get injured. They've got to regulate this somehow that players can interact with and maybe what they do is they say, okay, everybody off the field, because like I can tell you, FAU had a hard time getting off the court because there were so many fans in the mayhem, and they should at least allow them to leave, the opponent to leave, and then if they want to come down, so maybe it's after 5 minutes and it's not a storm, or they've got to figure out something, because I understand the fans are excited, the fans want to interact, and honestly, that's good for the sport that they want to interact, but I don't agree with them storming the court.
All right, so let me ask you a question, Candy. You say that, all right? So where does the responsibility lie on? The university presidents, the athletic director, or where? You're saying that, how do you regulate that? It happens everywhere, right? You're saying it needs to stop, but who's the one who has, do you have to go out there and have a PA announcement, say at the beginning? Because I know Jeremy's nodding his head. Hey, fans, just so you know, no storming the court after the game, or something has to be done to remind these people, because some of them are drinking and they're not in their right mind, and a lot of them, understandably, with the enthusiasm that they have. All right, Jeremy, you're making all kinds of. Go ahead.
That's the thing. Remember, at college, they have not limited to how long they do the alcohol sales now that it's allowed at college venues.
Right.
So now you have to get it to where it's just like at the pros, where like midway through the third quarter, you cut off the alcohol sale.
Right. But who's responsible, Jeremy? The athletic director or the president?
Believe it or not, it's not going to be anybody at the school. It's going to be NCAA officials that are going to have to figure this out, because no school is going to stop it, because they enjoy it. The players enjoy it. It is a hype move by the players to do that. And that's what gets everything going to where they storm down. So in those rivalry games, you know what they're probably going to have to do?
What?
A police force, a temporary police force enacted. You have them come out 5 minutes before the end of the game, line each side of the stand where they're just close enough where they can grab each other's baton and act like a human shield for the court, get the opposing team off, and then you can pull them out. I mean, yeah, it's going to be added security, but 30 to 60 extra security guards on the side of a court or a field is going to be a good deterrent.
Well, I haven't heard anything otherwise that makes sense other than what you just said. But the bottom line is the last thing I had heard that one university got fined $100K, and $100K with them doesn't mean anything anyhow. You can buy an awful lot of ballpark rents for $100,000. They ain't going to really hit their athletic department. Now, $100,000 might mean a lot when it comes to a much smaller school, but not a lot of these other schools that are $100,000 is a different situation. So yeah, the question is the athletic directors, presidents, they're responsible, local police force, or do you just keep finding them? Everybody's going to have an opinion on it. The bottom line is until action is taken done, players or a lot of people are going to get hurt, period, no matter what. And again, we're talking college basketball. Can you imagine soccer overseas, the way these people are so rabid where it becomes fatal?
Well, yeah, that's why they started putting up those big barriers around all the soccer stadiums over there after that. Remember, that's why they got the ones that they can't run through, where you have to actually be let through a gate now. They got big fences up. But every now and then, if enough of that mob gets there, we've seen those fences fail also, which means more.
Good luck trying to do anything with college basketball, okay? Especially the smaller arenas with rabbit. I'm not optimistic, but you know what? I have to see it out. And the bottom line with social media and the news cycle, you can hear something 1 second, it's all over the place in a matter of 10 minutes. So anyways, anything else you want to add?
And it's really hard because after the game, the tradition is the home team and the visitors team do high fives and congratulate each other for the longest time. But once you start doing that, if you're not, and let's face it, you're walking the opposite way typically of where your locker room is going to be. So then now you've got to have a stream, or you've got to set up barricades somehow quickly that they can walk through to the locker room. So they're not getting mobbed by people or players. Now, whether that's ushers and security, and yes, you can do some police, I get that. But a lot of these campuses have their own campus police. You can have some of them, you can have some regular police, and then you can have just some security that just comes for this purpose. I'm sure you could hire that there'd be some that would be willing to, work 2 hours on a whatever game basis. But yeah, something's got to be done so you especially don't injure the players of the opposing team.
Well, the thing you have to wonder about Filipowski is how long is this guy going to be hurt? And does this take away from Duke's opportunity to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament? Those are things you have to really look at. I don't think you have that problem in baseball. I think the only real problem you have is in basketball and football. Baseball, I don't know what the crowds are in some places, but I don't think, again, it's as evident there as it is with football and basketball. Good topic, though. I really like it. All the topics we have are pretty interesting, but these last two will certainly generate some opinion along, and that we'll see throughout the course of the season, as well as future policies that are. So let me give everybody an overview right now about what we have ahead of us here. Is this week here in the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, 108 Sixes Baseball Talk returns Monday night with myself, George Eichhorn, and John Toth. Tuesday night, Inside the Pigskin, we usually have our normal crew of Mel Farr Jr., Coach Bono, myself, and we have football talk with, Bull Crouch, and it looks like Travis Holmes will be on it this week. Wednesday night, we have a Real and the Rare, which I have a guy locally that'll promote his book. And then we have the Sports Exchange at night. JB Ellis will be back, paired with myself, Jacob Christner, and George Eichhorn. And then finally, on Thursday, we have Fire Up with myself. George Eichhorn will be off. Happy birthday, George, for that particular night. But Candy will be taking his place along with Denzel Snipes and Jacob Christner. And then, of course, your show on Friday night, on Thursday night, Jeremy, Candy, and whoever else they decide to bring on. And you guys have done a really super job here getting that going. And we're hoping to have the people next Sunday. So you have a very busy lineup going ahead. Anything else you want to add, Candy or Jeremy, to close it out?
Try every day to be a better person than you were the day before. It's the only way to make the world a better place.
And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, we have our ticker at the bottom, which gives you all the information how to contact us, and lessons from the microphone is on there, website, and so forth. So, all right, Candy, why don't you go ahead and take us home the rest of the way and close out the show?
There's a red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner underneath Scott. Please hit it. If you see it, hit it. That means you haven't subscribed to us yet. You want to be a subscriber. You don't want to miss any one of our great shows, our great programming. We would also ask you to subscribe to any of our other guests or co-hosts on our shows, because they're doing a great job too. So if you like podcasts, if you want to listen, you can always listen to any of our podcasts. It's available Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. We would encourage you to look at Scott's book. You can purchase it Amazon or Kindle. Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. He talks about how media has changed over the last 40 some plus years. And he's got some great stories about some great broadcasters, some great interviews that he's done. He's interviewed people from Muhammad Ali to Tommy Lasorda. Man, that goes back a ways, but you got to get the book because it's great. You got to subscribe. You got to listen. Come to our channel Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Sundays. It's all great programming. But I'm going to let Jeremy tell everybody about how they can get a hold of him.
Well, right here on the Fire Up shows or anywhere else, Scott needs me on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You can also find my writings underneath Scott Morganroth and another guy we mentioned tonight, George Eichhorn, under the Motor City Tribune heading, where I write about the NFL and the Detroit Lions. Might be dabbling in some more stuff this summer. Then you can also find me on my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I go live every morning at 11 a.m. and then also on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at 9:30 p.m. until the draft, where I cover it as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. Well, no, I know you're very thorough. And Candy, I want you, before we go off tonight, I want you to let everybody know what you're doing along with the show. Okay, that's something that's worth noting.
Doing what? I'm sorry.
With your shows with the Jennifer,
I was gonna-
Megan, and Terry.
So Tuesday nights, typically somewhere between 7 and 7:30, we start. We talk. It's 3 chicks and a pod, or chicks and salsa, and we talk about all kinds of sports. But we typically like to focus about women in sports and how sports has affected women. So come on over and watch our show. We'd love to have you. The other thing is if you ever want to see any of my photography, www.southfloridatribune.com. You know, Jeremy writes, Scott writes, George writes. I take pictures. And if you have any suggestions for any of our shows, please get a hold of one of us. You can email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you'd like to sponsor a show or advertise, call Scott 954-304-941.
All right. Well done, Candy. Well done, Jeremy. I know we had some pretty interesting topics tonight. And if you've missed this show, don't feel no problem. You can go to our YouTube channel or get a lot of information. Just keep watching it as many times as you want. Take notes. But one thing that's important before we get off the air tonight, this afternoon, our goal is to educate, inform, and entertain and whatnot. Anything you can get out of the show, we can make you smarter than you were, or be able to provide you with different opinions that you never thought. It's all about being objective, let you hear everything, and formulate their own opinion. So, on behalf of Jeremy Ball, Rick, Candy Ebling, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday edition of Fire Up, and we will catch you the next time. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks again for joining us. Bye now.